Hello.
Hi, Art.
How's everybody doing?
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Doing well.
Hi, Daphne.
Hello.
I'm glad the link worked for you.
Thank you for passing it my way.
Does my video look stretched out to you guys?
You look normal.
No? Okay. I still look stretched to me, but that's fine as long as I look normal to you.
Do you feel stretched?
You know, in many ways, sometimes. It's a projection of my inner feelings right now, huh?
So this is how you really look on the inside.
The psychological experiment.
Mhm.
Do you have a new monitor?
No, this is my old one, actually. I was looking in the Zoom settings trying to figure out if there's something that got clicked, but I can't. It's probably one of those just like, you know, install the update.
Almost everything with Zoom is updated.
Mhm. Yep.
Hi, Rose.
Oops. How are you?
Good.
Good.
Mary Beth, if you don't mind my asking, what's the mask situation with school in Middleton nowadays? Is it mandated or not, or is it?
Meeting to order. Thank you and welcome everyone. Lovely weather today. The warmer temps are really nice. Our first agenda item is public comment, and we have a member of our community here signed up for comment. So before you start, Daphne, I just want to remind the board members, this is a time for members of the public to make comments that they have. It isn't a chance for us to engage in conversation, but to listen to the comments from our citizens. So Daphne, I think you're unmuted already. If not, feel free to unmute yourself and you can take a few minutes to speak to us about what you're here to talk about tonight.
Amazing. Thank you, Miss Police. Hi, everyone. I'm Daphne. I'm a senior currently at Middleton High School. Currently, I'm at work, if you can't see, but luckily I was given time to attend this meeting and make a public comment. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I use the Middleton Public Library a lot, especially after work. After work, I go head to the library around 6:30. I was wondering, or I was hoping that the Middleton Public Library would be able to consider extending their hours, because the Middleton Public Library is one of the only free and public places where students from all socioeconomic backgrounds can study and utilize amenities such as, books, Wi-Fi, technology, and public libraries have always been a wonderful resource for underprivileged students, and it gives students a quiet and safe environment for them to work on their academics. And I know a lot of people around me, students, that suffer from, a lack of safeness at home, or they're struggling through just the safe environment at home. And it sometimes makes it difficult for them to get work done and do homework. And I know the Central Madison Public Library is open until 9 p.m. and on Sundays. And I hope that eventually on someday out into the future, after, I leave, maybe the Middleton Public Library will be able to sort of do the same And I know that there are staffing and security concerns. You know, a lot of people don't want to work until 9 p.m. But I do know that there are libraries at the UW-Madison campus that allow people to sort of check into the library using their library card. And there's very little staff, if any. People have to pass through a metal detector, so they don't have any weapons on them, and also use their library card to enter the doors. So I was wondering if, you know, maybe one day out into the future, that would be something that you guys could consider extending the school hours, and especially with the new renovations. You know, the Middleton Public Library is really beautiful, and I think that it would be worthwhile to sort of extend the hours and allow more students to sort of utilize that for a longer period of time. That's all I had to say.
Thank you very much, Daphne. We appreciate you attending the meeting and sharing your thoughts and requests. Daphne also shared with me a written statement by email that I will share with the rest of the trustees as well, so you can see her written comments. Thank you. Any other public comment? All right. We'll move on to our approval of the minutes from the January meeting. Were there any questions or comments about the minutes?
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
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 All right. Thanks again, Robert, for taking such thorough notes.
Thank you.
Moving on to the financial review. We have our year-to-date and then the budget. We have some more information, and I know we have some more final numbers since last time.
Lots to update on finances this evening. First off, under item number 10 on the agenda, the annual report. I do not have that back from Tracy Miller yet at SCLS. So that we'll need to decide if you would like me to run through the draft data entry form, or if we would like to schedule another meeting before February 25th, specifically to address the annual report. We've done this in the past, and we can circle back to this further down on the agenda, but just a heads up on that item. So looking at 2021, make sure I can find the right form here. So for whatever reason, this form that Bill printed out says Fund 212-2019 activity on the top. That title is wrong. I wasn't able to change it because he gave this to me in a PDF format and I didn't convert it. This is indeed 2021. So sorry for that confusion. If anybody caught that error at the top. So I'll just do a quick rundown of where we're ending 2021 with preliminary. So we kind of looked at this the last 2 months, and we're getting really, really close now. The finance department is working with the auditors, and the auditors process takes them right up until about mid-April. And so mid-April or early May is when the city has its prior year finalized. So the library will be included with all of that. We are really close to being done coding bills back to 2021. And the big thing is payroll. We have jumped the year with our payroll now. So we're firmly in the year 2022. So As you can see right up at the top with our revenues, we were short almost $20,000 as expected with copies and faxes. We decided to, in 2020, just go ahead and plan for the full revenue in 2021 as if it were a normal year, knowing that we would probably be short and need to reconcile that. So that's not a surprise. That was a planned over it or under. We also are maximizing our interest capability with the credit card rebate program that we started a couple years ago. So all of the things that we buy on credit cards, we get rebates for, and that totals about $6,000 a year. And we've started factoring that a couple years ago into our revenue. So our revenue overall was a little bit short because we weren't taking in those copies and faxes throughout the year. So this 25,897 is then reconciled against our fund balance or the variance of what's left over in the expenditures fund. So if we take a look in the far right-hand column and just cruise it right down here, we're looking at a $70,000 balance left in salaries. Again, we were expecting this because of several vacancies, especially a long-term department head vacancy that was vacant for more than half of the year as we were working on our redesign. Because of that, we used a lot of our part-time permanent staff. So we planned for that overage in the 111 account. And then we've had a variety of shortages of pages for a variety of reasons throughout 2021. And so we ended that with a balance of $46,500. So the majority of our fund balance for this year, or contingency funds or leftover money from our operating public fund, is about $180,000, which is a little bit more than what I was expecting, but pretty much in line with how we were planning expenditures throughout the year. I couldn't really get a solid answer on the 190 retirement account and why that was over by 6,000. That should be planned for right up front. So that's still a question I have with Bill to make sure that we don't have that happen again. All of the, of course, salaries and benefits are pretty much set with finance and HR. So that's a number that we don't necessarily have control over because it's designated by employment laws and it's a benefit. But everything below 210 office supplies are things that we expend out every day. So we ended with a balance in office supplies of almost $11,000. We were over in books for the first time since I've worked here, but extremely under with our audios expenditures. So that reconciled as we go down. A few others that we were expecting to be over in here, like just real slightly by a couple $100. The building grounds and maintenance overage of $1,793 really happened as a result of all of those floods that we had at the beginning of the year, and then some ongoing maintenance that was kind of above and beyond our regularly scheduled things at the end of the year. You can see in the 490 programming account, we only expended about $1,100 out of that, leaving a balance of about $8,800. We really utilized the Friends support for the majority of our programming last year, and it was really up and down, and we had no idea what to expect. So the majority of our programming from last year was funded with support from the Friends. And then we'll start to see expenditures out of the 490 account this year. Also a bit unsure about what to expect moving forward. So all of this leads us down to the bottom here. where we have some cleanup of the capital accounts. We started 2021 with a fund balance or contingency balance of $390,947. And we're ending with an available fund balance of $572,617. So this is a cumulative balance of things that were unspent out of this 212 fund for the last several years. Any questions on the 212 fund? All right, I think we can finally, at least for our purposes, put 2021 to rest in terms of the budget. 2022, oops, I think I just closed it. No, I didn't. So here's our approved and final published budget for this year. So if you remember when we were working on the budget back in August, September, and even into October, there was a lot of changes with employee benefits, especially in the areas of longevity, FICA, COLA, and health insurance. So we planned for the library's budget to be taken all the way down to bare bones operations, especially in terms of staffing, to be able to have a balance for the finance department to be able to work with, to allocate those funds back into the benefits. And so that's what the center column is, the remaining budget allocation. So with the money that was left, I think it was in October, I presented a list of recommendations about where to put that money. Most of it back into staffing, because the bare bones budget doesn't include any room for a change in workload or workflow accommodations, no training, no additional hours outside of regularly scheduled operations. So anything like a staff development day or any kind of training we want to continue with, like the YWCA or something that would happen either during someone's shift or on top of a shift, we would need to find extra coverage for. So we have that built back in to our top two salary lines. And then we've adjusted for the retirement and FICA accordingly. And then the rest of those funds we put back into postage, building grounds and maintenance, equipment maintenance. Equipment maintenance is specifically computers and technology support, and then programming. So $104,700 was allocated back into the 2022 budget, and this is what that looks like. So we've got that all cleaned up and everything is clean in our accounting system, and we're finally good to go. Any questions on the 2022 approved budget? All right, that's all I got.
Thanks, Jocelyn. You'll remember last time we were unable to approve the December vendor report, and so we have both December and January this month.
Yeah, and actually, I think we will, Jocelyn, are we still planning to hold off on January? So we will talk about December now. I did not send out January today. I'm still waiting on a few figures from the city, and I don't have final numbers yet. So we figured we'll just hold off on that one. So we're still playing catch up a little bit, but December you have seen in your email, and here it is. Were there any questions about December payments? I don't think there was anything too out of the usual that I wanted to point out, but if there are any questions. As you can see, there's some 2022 yearly payments like that wills. That's a bunch of our databases. So those are one-time payments for the year. Under electronic resources. see what else, similar with that biblioteca under equipment maintenance. Yep. Those are larger expenses that we, those subscriptions we pay for once a year. There was one additional donation from the Katie's Kids family. That was really nice. That came in as a bonus. Otherwise, I think that's it, unless there's questions.
Do we have a motion to approve?
Move approval.
There a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 All right.
And sorry,
And then
who seconded that for the notes?
I think it was Kareem.
Karine, yep.
Thanks, Corinne.
And then the January report, we will move to the next month.
Mhm.
Thanks.
You can see Rebecca's so close. And you can see how much, how much work really goes into this too. It's really helpful to have this record itemized every month. Thanks, Rebecca.
Mhm. Yes, thank you for doing such a great job on that. We have two approvals now, a gift agreement and the use of fund balance for contract.
So our gift agreement is a family that lives here in Middleton, Gregory and Barbara Sheehy. They approached me in December and were interested in learning more about the library and supporting the library. Barbara is a big library user. They've raised their kids here in Middleton and love the library and really appreciate all the improvements that have happened with Next Chapter. Barbara specifically mentioned the art gallery and all of the table displays she really enjoys. So this is, you may remember from the Next Chapter lookbook, one of two multi-language word murals. Last month, we had Monona Bank approved for a multi-language word mural that will be downstairs in the meeting room hallway that will say the word gather in many different languages. And then this will say welcome right above the front doors in the lobby. I will have more information on the languages and how we translated those in next month's roadmap report. But this is the form that we use for approval of naming rights associated with a gift. So they, as you can see here, paid by check, $2,500. The library board approves all naming rights at their board meetings. And then we also have more information about the gift and all that. And then we also have a spot here for the donors to put their in-space acknowledgement, which I'll work with them on. They were not picky and we're just thinking about their names, having their names as the in-space recognition. So if there's any questions on this, I would be happy to answer those at this time.
Is there a motion to approve the gift
So moved.
and a second?
Second by Rose.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Wonderful. Can't wait to see that once the mural is complete too.
It's going to be really fun. Mary Beth, I'll just need your signature on this last page and you can scan just the last page back to me if you can.
Okay, perfect.
Thanks.
And our next approval with the use of fund balance.
Yes, so fund balance, all the money that we have left at the end of the year. Per chapter 43 in Wisconsin state law, all of that money that's allocated to the library board stays under the library board's authority. So unlike other city departments where at the end of the year, if they don't spend their money, it gets rolled back into the general fund for the city. The library board keeps that money and it's under the authority of the library board. So we essentially keep the money that we don't spend. So obviously every year, it's a really fun game for Rebecca and I to get the budget as close as we can. The last few years have been really weird. And so we've ended each year with a much, much larger fund balance than we normally would. Typically in years past, fund balance has been used to pay for facility improvements, facility emergencies, things that are like kind of extra and above and beyond, but really more organizational and not so much for the public. So not really a good match for the friends necessarily, but for things like consulting fees or back in 2015, the feasibility study was paid for with fund balance. We used fund balance for a variety of next chapter stuff. So there's a variety of different things that this could be used for. There's no specific designation. It just needs to be expended with board approval. So a few months ago, I put together a list of things that we were thinking about spending or making some recommendations to the board for expenditure for the use of this money. Staff prioritized some of that. We have some movement on a couple of these other things. So the agenda item is specifically related to these first two items, but I'll just take a quick moment to run through the rest of these two and then talk a little bit about moving forward with expending fund balance. So for the motion tonight, both of the donors donated $2,500 each for their naming rights, leaving a balance of $2,250 each for the murals. For the work to be done by local artists from Oh Yeah Studios. Let me bring them up really quick because they're worth taking a look at. They did the Love Your Neighbor mural that's on University. And they specialize in hand lettering. So we thought that they would be a really great match for all of our letters in different languages. So just some really fun stuff, local artists. This is a really fun example of how an idea or project can evolve. So we had the idea for naming rights as it related to the next chapter project as we got going with fundraising and really looking at our strategic roadmap and the need to deliberately create visible spaces of inclusion. We thought a great way to do that, especially in the library, would be with languages. So we reached out to the language specialist at the school district, and she gave us a somewhat surprising list of the top 15 languages spoken by families in Middleton. And then we kind of sat on it for a little bit. And then about a year later now, we have two donors that really thought that this was a great match for their giving opportunity. And we contracted at one point with the company Tingles Graphic Design to redo our logo. They mocked up some ideas of what these murals might look like. And then with the help from the donors, we were able to take it a step further and work with local artists that specialize in hand lettering. So just a really fun evolution of an idea through the library. So before we get back to the motion, a quick rundown of some of the rest of these priorities. The starred on the left is what was identified by the staff as priority. The stairwell mural is something that we'd still like to explore. The Oh Yeah Studio guys wanted to start with the 2 smaller murals first, because anything that we do in the stairwell is going to require scaffolding and is a bigger project. So we'll come back to that. We're not letting that sad stairwell go alone. The UV window protector, I'm working with Lakeside Glass and maybe a couple of other companies. If anything is over 10,000, I need to get 3 bids. If the work is going to be all done at the same time, this would dramatically improve the life of the collections that get a lot of really hard sun, especially on the south side of the building. Exterior sign, this would be something that replaces the pole sign that's at the end of the, or beginning of the entry for the parking lot. It's not very well lit. It's hard to see. Something that is updated with the new logo might be worth our while. So I'll be getting some quotes for that. There's always more painting that could be done. Awning over the exterior book drop was another priority. This is also a bit of a safety one, just because it gets really slippery right outside at the top of those stairs, and materials also get wet when people are returning things in the rain. This would be some sort of metal awning, probably. I've learned a lot about awnings and shade and mounting to masonry and snow and water runoff and ice. So we'll be working on a solution for that. Also a changeable hours sign that's like mounted perhaps on the fence that says like book drop this way. It's kind of hidden. The book drop outside return is a bit hard to find if you don't know specifically where you're looking for it, or you're expecting like a drive up and you just kind of get like the weird side of the building and the fence. Restrooms are going to be really expensive, and it's a big project. Possibly a use of a capital request. I have here a note that it's dependent upon the community campus committee. These are things that I think if we're going to invest in the building, we really need to know for sure that this is going to be a library for the next 10 to 20 years. So I hate to drop 70,000 or so on restroom remodels only to have those last 5 more years for the life of this particular building. So there's a handful of things like that that I think would be wise to continue waiting on. Interior digital signage, like things like a screen by the meeting rooms, or another one mounted perhaps by the bubblers to advertise programs, like the lobby slides. Mobile charging stations, something easy throughout the building, outdoor bench. Someone suggested solar powered charging station out there. I'll come back to the Bookmobile in a second. We are working with Fearings to finalize the upgrades for the technology in the Archer meeting rooms. We're waiting on a few last pieces for installation on that, and then we'll start to use it and train staff, and then we'll reopen up the meeting rooms. I'm really hoping that we can do that sometime in April. We need to learn how to use it all before we can support the public's use of that. And we're also going to be really looking at what do we like, what do we not like, if we want to invest in something similar in the adjacent community friends meeting room. Right now, we have sort of shuffled our technology from one space to the next with hand-me-downs. So we'll play and get used to the new tech before we move forward with any kind of request or recommendation to expand that. And then I think it would be wise for us to keep at least 150 for emergency response for things like the roof, like what happened 6 years ago, where we had an emergency closure because the roof needed addressing. We have a policy right now that says we'll keep a maximum amount of $100,000 in contingency. This policy was set in 2019 and really a way for the library board to create a sense of protocol and procedure around fund balance. So we're not just using it like a default savings account. If we're not expending our budget every year, then we should lower our budget, but we run into the problem of then not meeting our tax exemption. So this is really just a way to keep our due diligence on top of that fund balance and keep that really clean and expended. And at least intended for a project or a purpose. So that's something that we could revisit and look at is amending that policy to exclude a maximum or something like that. I think that can require further thought and discussion, especially as we get into discussions about investments. So these are the projects that I'll be working on getting quotes for that will come out of that leftover money. Which that balance is 500, oops, is on my other sheet, 500 and some $1,000. So it gets eaten up pretty fast by some of these big things. And anytime I have a quote that's ready, like I do for the murals, I'll bring those forward so that we can really keep close tabs on how, and for what we're using the fund balance for and what kinds of recommendations we're making. Any questions on that?
Jocelyn, can you speak more about thoughts or timeline regarding a bookmobile or?
Yes, thank you.
Kind of going back to that.
Yep, thanks. Almost forgot. We originally included, let me back it up just even a little bit further. In 2015, the library board did the feasibility study that's posted on the library board's website or page on midlibrary.org that indicated the library needed to triple in size in order to meet the growth and the needs of the community into the next 20 to 25 years, which then spurred the exploration for costs of a branch library, and then spurred forth the community campus plan and discussions with City Council around the need to plan not just for the library, but also City Hall and the Senior Center, and what's the best use of land in the downtown of Middleton that's owned by the city. So at the time when the board explored the options for a branch, there was some discussion of a bookmobile. Bookmobiles are often really great ways to experiment and prototype with branch locations, branch services. They come in a huge variety of sizes and purposes. So when we had the opportunity for the Arpa funding, we thought that this might be a really good fit for that funding. So we went through the Arpa process. It got knocked off. And then just as of the last council meeting, it got brought back on as what the feds were approving in terms of appropriate expenditures for ARPA. So since then, we've worked on honing in on the fund balance. And Amy Perry and I have also met with the guys out at the city garage. So Brad and Brian run the city garage and is our city mechanic. And they're very supportive of a bookmobile, and we'll be looking at several options for an electric vehicle over the next year or so. It will probably take us at least the rest of this year to plan for not only acquiring a vehicle, but also a service plan. Amy Perry, our outreach and engagement librarian, is doing so much already, just as one person with minimal part-time support here and there from other staff, that if we were going to do anything that would add outreach services instead of just replacing something that Amy's already doing, we're gonna need to look at adding additional staff for that. So an additional staff person specifically dedicated to mobile library services, along with staff for staffing on Sundays, are two of the big pieces included in our 5-year staffing plan that council is looking at right now for a possible referendum. So I won't say that we can't do mobile library services if we don't get more staff, because that is not necessarily true, but depending on how we're going to use a vehicle, we might. So we're in this point in time right now with the manufacturing of electric vehicles, that especially the size that we want something large enough that someone in a wheelchair or a walker would be able to board. So that requires a lift, a little bit different setup. We would prefer not to have to go through the CDL process or have a vehicle that's large enough to need air brakes. So there's a lot to learn about what is even an option right now in terms of electric. Brian, the city mechanic, is, like I said, super supportive. They really want to make this happen. We solved a couple of challenges, like where would we park this? We could park a vehicle like this in the terrace lot in the warmer months. And then if it was going to be unused for any period of time, or especially in the winter, we would park it at the city garage. So things like that. We're working on the logistics to be prepared. And then it's kind of a matter of the availability with manufacturers. So that's about where we're at right now. Because we have fund balance that needs to be expended, I've indicated to Mike and Bill that we can take the Bookmobile off of the ARPA funding table, and other city departments should use that funding, especially when we're talking about infrastructure for stormwater. Art, what can I answer for you?
Thank you. I guess I need a little bit of clarification, and I'm not sure how to go about this. Well, let me just ask you some questions and see if I can clear this up. So that fund balance is $572,000.
Mm-hmm.
If we had approved this and everything on that list of $344,000 or so, then there would still be remaining $228,000 in the fund balance.
Mm-hmm.
And we could spend that at some point additionally if we wanted to spend it all the way down.
That's correct.
So in effect, isn't the fund balance a contingency fund? In the sense that it's there if you want to spend it. And I guess that's what's confusing me a little bit. But if you say you have a contingency fund, that really means you can spend everything else except what's in the contingency fund for some emergency. Is that the idea of the contingency fund?
Yep, our language is confusing, and it is used 3 to 4 different ways across the city. It all means the same thing.
That's what's confusing.
Yep. So here's the policy for the library board. It's very short. So in some places in city documents, it's referred to as fund balance, as in the balance of the fund. In some places, it's referred to as annual fund balance. So there's not necessarily a clear number, like we ended this year with X number of dollars. It like rolls over, so it adds to that balance every year.
Right.
And then the library board has called it contingency. I've also heard it referred to as contingency in the finance meetings. So for the library board's purposes, the money left over at the end of the year builds until we expend it, and we expend it or hold on to it rather for these two reasons, and can expend it for a number of whatever you want.
But there's no limit or guidelines. There's no regulation that says you can use it for this, but you can't use it for that. It's totally at our discretion.
It's at the library board's discretion. Yep. I do have to record the amount that's left at the end of the year that gets carried over into the next year that is expended. And then the difference of those two goes into other funds held on the annual report. So we can dig into that in a little bit if you want to with the annual report, or we could save it for that separate meeting. So it is reported somewhere besides just at the city. And again, the goal every year is to get the budget as close to zero and balanced as with expenditures as we can get it. If we're within, trying to think of what other past years have been without looking at the spreadsheet. If we're within like $25,000 to $50,000 of a $2.3 million budget, I think that's really great. And if we were to over expend, so say, something went totally haywire and we had to blow all this money out of the 212 fund, and we went over the $2.3 million, then and this.
And I think that we put to bed that we can't transfer it out of this fund, so it stays there no matter what.
Yeah.
So, and it's sort of like a rainy day fund as well as all the other things.
Yep.
Okay. So just on these possible this list of what we just saw, we're not taking any action tonight, I presume.
We have one action item. Oops, sorry here. One action item related, and the motion would be for the expenditure of each of these to make up the difference in the cost for the artists.
For the murals.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a question, Karine?
Yes, so the maximum on the policy says 100,000. Does that mean that you'll be moving for an action item for the 150 so that we get rid of the maximum terminology, or will we be changing the 150 to 100,000?
So I don't have the policy amendment on the agenda for tonight. I think that would be a good discussion to have with the finance department, and also to just revisit in general. The purpose of the maximum amount was just so that we weren't banking all this money at the end of every year and ending with $500,000 that the library wasn't doing anything with. If we have a balance at the end of the year in excess like that, then we should have a plan to do something with it. So that was really the intention of the maximum number. The last 3 years have been really bizarre, and I think that it would be worth revisiting this policy as it stands right now. I don't have a recommendation on what that would be yet.
Robert?
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, that's the problem we're all in. I think we will have to talk to the finance department and figure out what are our options, because I mean, as Jocelyn pointed out, there's certain suggested things that we could spend the money on, that we could put the money, sure, we could spend the money, and then maybe the current library building gets changed. Who knows to what, but it could be gone. And so, yeah, I mean, at some point when that big question mark is hanging in the air for all of us as to what will the future bring, spending the money to spend it, just to have it spent, is dangerous, because then we won't have the money when we really, really need it. So I think we do need to get some guidance from the finance department as to, what we can do given the uncertainty in the next 5 to 10 years, as the community campus is kind of laid out as a plan. So I think, yeah, today I think this is a good overview. I think it's good for us to know, but I think we should make a motion regarding Oya Studio. And I guess I had just a quick question on that, Jocelyn. Are they doing the design work and then somebody else is doing the painting? Are they doing the design work and the painting? And are they doing it for welcome and gather murals, or just for one or the other?
They're doing it all. So they do both they're doing both murals, the design work and the painting. And they're using, most of the paint that they're using is left over from the murals that we did downstairs in the meeting rooms. I will also just mention that, in the contingency policy, it says reserve for operational continuance, reserve for future needs. That operational continuance could become a really big deal moving forward. We have this very odd problem where we have a large amount of fund balance, but yet every year our operating budget is very precarious. So we don't necessarily know what is going to happen with our Dane County funding for 2023 and beyond. There's work groups right now that are looking at those two cost formulas. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to be sitting on more than what we say the policy maximum is, especially when we're looking at operational continuance as part of the purpose of that money. So we're going to be entering into some unknown years here with the Dane County money, which then impacts what the city needs to allocate in order to remain tax exempt to get that county money. So that's where I think just further discussion with Bill and maybe even the county comes in. So back to the motion, it would be 4,500 total use of fund balance for the purposes of OES Studios 2 murals.
Sorry, I had a question in regards to OEA. Is there any sort of policy that says we have to have more than one company, like for the stairs, or do we have to consider that OEA can't do all of the murals?
No, we could absolutely spread the love around. Because the gather and the welcome kind of go together, that makes sense to have the same artist do both of those. If we wanted to contract with somebody different for the stairs, we absolutely could. If it's going to be anything that's more than $10,000, then I should really go out to bid for that. Unless we're not using all public money for that 10,000. Like if just hypothetically, say it's a $20,000 mural and the library board's paying for 5, we're fundraising for 5, and the friends are picking up the rest, then we wouldn't have to. But the board would still need to approve an expense.
Thank you.
Good
Any
question.
other questions?
I don't have a question, but I would make a motion to approve $4,500 from this budget for Oya Studios to create the lobby mural and the downstairs mural.
And
Second.
that total was 9,500 too, just to clarify.
So
Oh,
it's 90, no, it's 9,500, but we already have allocated
Oh.
part of that. So we're only using 4,500 of fund balance.
Art,
if-
were you doing a second?
Yes.
Sorry, Robert, I didn't mean to speak over you.
No, I just want to, yeah, if my motion needs to be amended in any way, shape, or form, I'm willing to do so. But if it's correct the way it is, I'm fine with it that way.
I think to clarify, I think your motion's correct. I think the total cost was the 9,500, but we're only making a motion to use the 4,500 out of fund balance,
And we could
regardless of the total cost. So it's
we
your
could word
motion's
it.
correct.
Yeah, we could word it to say, in addition to the $5,000 raised by donation or by gifts, or something along those lines, if that's helpful. Otherwise, yes, the $4,500 is what the library board is approving to add into this.
So we have a motion and a second. Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay.
Any opposed? All right. Committee updates with our building and development on hold for now based on where we're at in those processes. Unless there's anything you want to add, Jocelyn, we can move on to liaison updates.
No, I think we're good.
Robert, do you have any updates from City Council?
I just briefly, it's already been alluded to. We had a committee of the whole to talk about a variety of things, but one of the major things is how we're going to be spending ARPA funds, which is federal government funds to be spent on various things. And one of the big ideas that have come out of this is electric vehicles and electric infrastructure for vehicles. Still some debate going on at the Common Council level about how we do this and when we do this, but I would certainly encourage us in whatever we do to try to do more with electric vehicles for library use, because I think that's one that really does make sense. And whether it's ARPA funds or some other funding source, I think we need to do that. And then on a personal note, I'm telling everybody, I love my Honda Fit, but I did upgrade to a Nissan Leaf. So now I'm driving an electric vehicle. So I'm really excited about that. If anybody wants to take a test drive in an electric vehicle, let me know, because I'm happy to show it off. That's all I had for an update.
Thanks, Robert. Welcome to the Electric Club. I love my plug-in Prius.
Nice.
All right, friends updates.
Kristen, I can do the report from my notes, but
Sounds good.
you're the president, so do you
Go
want me-
ahead, Art. I don't think I have much to add, so.
Oh, all right. Well, so from my notes of the meeting of January 31st, which was actually for the February meeting, but we just did it Monday last week. Or yeah. Anyway, the current balance in the Friends account is $82,500 or so. So they've had a lot of success with fundraising, membership, and so forth. There was some discussion about using a program called Little Green Light to use as a donor membership and fundraising database, and that will proceed. There's going to be some training that's necessary to get that up to full speed. They also talked about the process of how the Friends will go about funding projects for the library in the future. And I guess that's something else that's going to be worked on. Also, some discussion about the care and feeding of corporate donors for the future. There is, the next item was they're developing a QR code that can be shown to the public again, to help facilitate donations. And this would be something that would be perhaps on a flyer or circular that might be used at a large event, again, to encourage donors. There was also acknowledgement that the bylaws, the Friends bylaws, are going to need to be updated, and that's still in the works. And finally, there's some discussion about the Kiwanis idea, and there was no decisions made on that. I think they're still trying to get more details about what that all involves. And that's what's going on with Friends. Any questions?
Just real quick on the Kiwanis thing, was that the book sale in August, or was that a different?
Yes, that's the book sale in August.
Okay. That's still being discussed. It's not yet finalized, correct?
Yes, that's still in discussion and gathering more information.
Perfect. Thank you.
Anything to add, Kristen?
I don't think so.
Okay,
I think
great.
you covered it. So yeah, I
Great.
think our major thing for the next little bit is we're trying to just make sure our website and our quarterly letters and that actually have our corporate sponsors on. So that's our next big thing. We're just trying to make sure we've got all squared away.
Thank you. Updates from the school district. We are getting into a season of hiring. We have a few retirements, particularly from our leadership level. So some of our administrators are retiring. So we are posting those positions this week. So getting ready to hire for new leaders for the next school year. Not many other big updates. Just getting ready as it feels early, but ready to start planning for summer programming and our summer academy. And I know we have a small version or summer academy of summer school for students, and then planning for also library activities, library in the park. Our library media specialists do a lot of joint things with Amy, and so getting ready to plan those and launch that, because summer will be here before we know it. Anything from the community? And our EDI group?
Yeah, we have a short update. We have a draft that is circulating among Rose, Corrine, and myself. And we're meeting Thursday, I think, to probably finalize work on it. And so I hope that we'll have this for the board's review for the March meeting.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for your work on that. Director's update. Jocelyn.
All right. Well, we started off January with a bang around here. I'm going to run through the report, and then I'm going to weave in a few things about our behind the scenes communications and processes to give you an idea of how the two play off of each other and where people are getting their information from. So our community partnership focus area, with these three priorities is really going stronger than ever. Things like a partnership with the Red Cross to do a blood drive in the library was really successful, and we're going to build on that and do another one in May. So things like this, we're making an exception to the use of the meeting rooms for public use right now because it's so important in terms of public health. We would do the same thing if we were able to host a vaccine clinic or testing site here. This is worth making an exception to our process and policy right now. And then we've really, over the last couple of years, despite the pandemic, and this is a huge shout out to Amy Perry and all of the part-time staff that also go and help at events, really able to solidify our frequency and consistency with a lot of our visits. And so we're really starting to see some really fun growth. So here's a few examples. The Middleton Senior Center, we've been working collaboratively with them to offer a steady service of about 40 items per month to registered folks that would like items. We are continuing to visit the youth center, and usually Kelsey Hudson, our teen librarian, makes an effort to join those as well. And then you may remember, I think it was back in September, October, Cardinal View Senior Living opened and had a big opening party. The library was there and had an outreach table. And then we've been doing lobby stops for the last couple months. So Amy arrives at the lobby, sets up a table, a variety of library information, card registration, materials to check out, and then she'll also bring holds for people that have placed holds the previous week, or things that have come in for people. So really a good example of bringing the library to people. Lobby stops are really common with public libraries and are a really great way to reach seniors. So one of the ways that we look at a program like this, whether it's story time or an outreach, is we create a record of that program in our utility page that's used by staff. So you may remember from old board reports, there used to be a huge list of all of the programs, or sometimes I would include all of the people that booked the meeting room, so you could see like all the different groups that were using the space. I'll still do that occasionally, just to kind of throw it out there here and there, but really this is the behind the scenes evaluation that staff uses to determine how successful was the program, how many people were there, things we want to keep in mind for next year. So things like the Senior Center free book errand runner distribution, which happened on the 7th. Amy was our demonstrator. If we look at that, then we can see here that there was 13 people. We include a note about publicity. So we did not do any publicity on this one. It's really coming from the Senior Center because we're working with their volunteers. And then a little bit of note about the content, or a note about evaluation. So this is where staff will put in logistics, like this worked really well, but this didn't, would do this, not that. Here was some feedback from a patron, things like that. So this gives you an idea of like where the program ends. So when the program's over, it's not completely done yet, because staff still do an evaluation like this. And this is where we get our statistics then. So it's been a while since we've showed anything like this. And I don't think the new trustees that have come in the last year or so may be familiar with that. So that's just an example of how we keep track of what we do when and how many people. And then these grand totals down here, these numbers, then
Also, can I interrupt you for a sec?
please. Mm-hmm.
It sounds like you're screen sharing, but I'm not seeing any screen sharing.
Oh, no. Thank you for saying something. Let's try that again.
There you go.
Okay.
It's coming. Yeah, there you go.
Whew. Okay, thank you. So you may remember this list of programs. We've got the date, and then this is how, a quick peek again at how we record and evaluate things. So if something was publicized on social media, in the newspaper, or notify me, then that would be listed here under publicity. And then if we had a lot of people come into the program and say, oh, we saw this on Facebook, we shared it with everybody, blah, 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 then maybe that would make it into the evaluation. Like most people who attended said they saw it on Facebook or something like that. We don't do formal, like, paper written evaluations per se, unless it's like some special program or event. Generally, this suffices for our purposes. So that's kind of a peek behind the scenes. Set your dates for May 31st, the next blood drive. It's pretty awesome how they set up a whole clinic in the basement of an empty room. We have on our website a really fun feature called Collaborate with the Library. Right on midlibrary.org under services, we have at the bottom, Collaborate with the Library. This is a really nice passive way for us to handle inquiries, a really nice link to be able to share for somebody that sends us a great idea, but it's not necessarily fleshed out. It also is a good way for us to kind of define how are we determining what's a program, what's an event, what's a partnership. So we had a lovely couple who enjoys Lebanese cooking, fill out the online form. We created a flyer and posted it on Facebook. So you can see here, we reached 431 people. And the cooking demonstration happened online. Here's a fun picture of somebody from their kitchen following the library program online. There's our couple right there. And 51 people attended, which is really great for an online virtual program. So forms like that are a really great way for us to still say yes or leave the door open, but not necessarily have to go through the journey of the idea with everyone. It's also a really great way for us to partner with organizations. So that's Collaborate with the Library form is something that if you are out and about or you hear somebody that you feel like would make a great program, or you have an idea, or you think you want to send somebody else the link, it's all available on the website all the time. We've been working more at the parks this winter. We just added some dates for February, which are listed on our events calendar. You might not be able to see it from this blurry picture, but all bundled up in the back there is Rose. There was, oh, sorry, my screen here is a little wild. There was over 100 people that showed up, and we gave away 181 books. On a really cold Wisconsin winter day outside. So that was great. We have 2 new collections. The Nostalgic Picture Book collection is geared towards adults living with dementia and memory loss. And then we also have Wonder Walk backpacks. This is also a partnership that initially came through about 5 years ago and then was revived with a new group of volunteers from Pheasant Branch. And so I pointed them towards the Collaborate with the Library form. And here we are about 1.5 years or so later with a really fun pilot project with backpacks that you can check out from several different locations. And they include binoculars, field guides, exploration guides, all kinds of fun stuff about the Conservancy. The minutes, along with slides, are available online. The community campus refresher was really good, actually. I would recommend everybody take a look at that. It's linked right here off of this report. It was a really great, why did we start this? Where did we end things? And what are considerations that we need to keep in mind now that we've learned because of the pandemic that we didn't know before? So that's available online. They'll be reconvening the committee. This is a committee that Cindy Zellers and myself were both on. Normally, city staff don't get to be on committees as a voting member. We have to staff them. So it's exciting to be able to represent the library on a committee because Cindy has moved from Middleton to the city of Madison. And this is not the library board where we can have two people outside of the municipality. It's a city committee, and therefore everyone needs to be a resident of the city of Middleton. Cindy's position will be replaced. So I don't know yet how the mayor intends to do that. If he's looking for anyone from the library board, I will definitely reach out to the board to see if anyone would have interest or time to do that. More to come from Abby Attoon, who's the planning director for the city and staffing that committee. Some fun things to share about some of our impact. 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten is a free program that's available through the Middleton Public Library in the kids section. On top of the short shelves, we have blank books that kids or whoever can take home. I often will take 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten book and include it in a stack of books for like a baby shower or something like that. As a way to encourage early literacy practices with parents. So this is a program that's made possible by the Friends. Way back when we bought boxes and boxes and boxes of these books. And since then, we've supported over 4,140 early readers and their caregivers. Kristen, feel free to snag that statistic and use it however you would like. We also, in 2021, in the state of Wisconsin, had a total readership of 7.2 million ebooks and audiobooks. So Middleton participates in the Wisconsin Library Consortium. This is what the South Central Library System refers to as the Advantage Program or Overdrive. These are all related to e-content. And overall, the state increased by quite a bit this last year. And we'll see this on the annual report in terms of how it breaks down for Middleton readers. And that's about it on the roadmap. I wanted to just bring a couple other things to our attention. I covered the Collaborate with Your Library form. Also on our website, we have listed on the bottom all of our main social media. We mostly use Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Twitter is not super active. Nextdoor is a huge can of worms that the city attorney advised us not to engage in. So this is where you can get to the library's social media platforms quickly. We are continuing to do live streaming programming on Facebook. Especially right now as we pulled back in-person programming because of the spike in variant right now. We're looking at moving back to more in-person as that declines. And then we also have a couple of other media outlets. One is through the city. If you haven't signed up for any of the Notify Me notifications, this is a really nice way to stay on top of targeted city news. And the library has things broken down here by category. We use this extensively across departments for promoting library activities. And we also have a large list that's sort of general library information with thousands of emails that we really reserve for like big important things. Like maybe the 2022 annual report or the announcement that we've successfully completed the next chapter campaign, things like that. So this is a really great way to stay on top of city news. We also send out the board announcement and notification this way. So it also serves a dual purpose of public notice. We also send stuff to the school district, and this year they just changed up the way that they do flyers. So it's all digital now, which as a parent, I love it. Nothing sneaks by me anymore. It doesn't make it into the backpack. And so that's something that we continue to work with the media specialists at the school district to list for library promotions. Several years ago, when we did our strategic plan, we worked with the state library consortium called WILS that offers strategic planning consulting services. And they did a large comprehensive survey in 2019 that asked a variety of questions over a course of different topics. And one of those topics was awareness and how people are finding out information about the library. So again, this is the before times. But I would expect that we would see this same pattern, if not accelerated more because of everything that's happening online with from the pandemic. So this, without diving too far into the nitty-gritty details about all of this data, this kind of gives you a snapshot of where people are finding their information about the library. So we started off with one of the questions for the awareness category of how did you learn about the survey? So the majority of people found out about the survey that we were doing from the library's website. And then
Justin, are you trying to screen share again?
I wonder if you switched applications, it was only still showing your web browser.
Okay. Oh, thank you.
Got it.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Okay. So this is how you can see where people are finding out information about the library. So the first question was about this survey in particular, but then it starts to break it down into which of the following ways are ways that you learn about library activities, programs, or news about the library. So there was 839 people that answered and 53 people skipped this particular question. So you can see that the majority of people actually find out information from the library's actual website. And then it's social media after that. Then it's our newsletter, word of mouth. I don't remember what the other category was. I'd have to go back into our data notes for what those, what people specified. Email would include the Notify Me, as would some of the other things. Like we'll use Notify Me for the library newsletter and things like that. And then our local papers are at the bottom here. So we have worked with the local papers in the past on a variety of different things. Listing our events in the paper is something that we haven't really had a huge impact with. And we also have sort of the nice challenge in Middleton that our programs are so well attended that we often will pull publicity like a slide off of our website and just have it on the events calendar because it's already full. So we try to have things open and available as much as possible. But when we start to have too many people in a small space, even before the pandemic, it really impacts the experience in a negative way, especially for things like story times. So then the strategy is to add more, which we have done to the capacity of our staff. Then the strategy is to hire out. And so we've done that. And now we're just bumping into the same problem that we would have had before we closed, which is square footage. So I've never had this problem before in any library I've ever worked at. We've always are trying to get people to come to programs. So when we advertise something too widely and we have a huge response, and we're only able to fill 50 or 80 spots, or we're only able to do it 3 times in a month, then that really leaves a bad taste in people's mouths and is not necessarily good customer service either. So we have the publicity pretty well dialed in, especially in terms of our targeted areas within service departments. I'll just kind of do a quick look through so you can kind of get a feel, and I can send you this whole slide show if it'd be helpful, but without the context, some of it doesn't necessarily make sense. But you can kind of get a sense of where people were finding their information about the library and how they're using or not using the library. Any questions about the roadmap from January or our behind the scenes efforts, Rose?
So I think it looks fabulous, all the information that's given out and how well you do that via mostly the internet again. And I'm wondering too, so high praise to all that you're doing that way. I do have a question about the survey, and I wonder if we know what communities actually participated in and to what degree those communities participated in the survey.
They were all Middleton residents.
Well, I know that, but I mean, like, is there any way we can identify like where in the community of Middleton that the people responded, or did they give their addresses, or what do we know?
Which district they live in?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I'd need to look back at the extra data definitions. I don't think we asked for contact information or card number, which is the 2 ways that we would link it back to a district. So not necessarily.
Okay. And I have to say that when I was at Lakeview Park last month, I was impressed when I asked, just kind of casually talking to some of the parents, where did you hear about this? And they said, oh, notify me, or they'd heard about it from their school, from the school, that they've gotten the notice from them. And so I was really impressed with that. I was very pleased to hear that you were doing that kind of thing. Yeah. Well done.
Thanks. Yeah, I think we've got a good variety of platforms, and we're not spending a lot of time on platforms or tools that are not necessarily showing the biggest impact, but we still have them as an option and included. So that way we've got all options covered. Any other questions?
How do I take my finger?
Do you have a question, Teresa?
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in. It's not a question as much as just I want to get this piece in, that the communications committee did meet. And thank you, Mary Beth, for listening to the whole recording and sharing that a lot of the things that we were talking about, and maybe even thinking about doing an action item, were already being covered. And then Jocelyn, thank you for really spelling things out. I was actually going to request in new business today that happens, and you already did it. Super helpful for me as a fairly new trustee to see all that information and understand how the communications are happening. So I just to jump in with that piece.
Great, thanks, Teresa. There's so much to learn, not just about what the library offers and what a library does, but then all of the behind the scenes operations with how a library functions, that there's no way that it can happen all at once. So if there's any questions, I'm always happy to answer them in this meeting with a more formal production or presentation or one-on-one too. Yeah, thanks.
I just have one more comment, and I'm still concerned about the people who don't use the internet, or are not using email and that kind of thing, and how do we reach those people? And that's very perplexing. I don't know that we'll ever figure that one out, but I'd sure like us to work on it.
Thanks, Rose. I think that's always important to remember, especially with our senior population.
Mhm.
Robert? You're on mute.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Jocelyn. I also want to, thank you for that. Was great to see what we're already doing. And yeah, just from the communications committee, when we did meet, that was, as Rose said, that was kind of the big thing, is what can we do to reach out to people we're not reaching out to, and what other needs do you see? Not that I need the answer today, but what other needs do you see? Some of the questions that I have is how can we reach out to people to let them know how they can help the library? Whether it's, and I know we have like a donation page and we have, stuff like that, but I'm looking when I wear the hat of how can we communicate better, a lot of it's like, how can we ask more for what we need as a library, just in terms of information? It could be money, sure. Could also be like, how can we help you better? And maybe some of that is happening on the Facebook and those types of social media. But I'm wondering if there's like a two-way conversation that needs to happen, as opposed to, hey, here's the wonderful things that we're doing at the library, and come visit us. And oh, by the way, we're full because we're so successful at getting people involved in our programs. But how can we turn this into maybe more of a two-way conversation, where we as a library can learn things that we want to know about how we can do things differently, better, different, whatever. So I hope we can continue having those kind of conversations. I don't think we need it right now. But thank you again for showing us what you're already doing, because those are amazing metrics. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. You bet.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you, Jocelyn. So let's talk about our next item, because you had kind of foreshadowed at the beginning of the meeting that it's not quite ready for approval, but perhaps we want to take some time to go through that, or we also need to then arrange a time to do an approval yet this month.
Yep, I was hoping to have an email from Tracy, and it looks like she hasn't gotten to this yet. So every year we do 3 sets of annual reports. We do one for the city of Middleton, one for the public that's just based on the library. And this is what's the annual report that's listed on our website. And then we also do an annual report for the Department of Public Instruction. The DPI report is our official government report that then gets turned into the feds. This is also the form that's used for our Dane County formulas, and it's based on preliminary 2021 numbers. I always have to remind myself of that every year, because the DPI report is not a budget, it's a snapshot. So I could it's 7 o'clock right now. I could take the time to dive into a somewhat cumbersome data entry portal with you, and we could look at this data, or we could schedule another meeting because the DPI report for all the South Central Library System libraries goes to SCLS for review. And our report is at SCLS for review right now. And then it goes into a queue, and Tracy looks at those and then shoots back any questions or adjustments that she might have. And then I present the nice PDF version of that report to you for review and approval. And I don't have that version of the nice PDF. So we would be looking at the data entry portal. So I'm happy to do that, or we could schedule another meeting and just dedicate the meeting to the 2021 annual report and perhaps the January vendor report. And if we did that, we would need to schedule a meeting before February 25th. Your choice.
So regardless, we need to have a quorum to come back before the 25th for approval. And so it probably makes sense to go through the report at that approval process, because we'll probably go through it again anyway for fresh people's minds and stuff.
Tracy said that we could have our boards approve the draft pending minor adjustments. Minor is of course subjective, and it wouldn't be the official final draft that you're looking at. So that's your choice as well. I'm happy to do either.
I make a motion to wait and do it before February 25th.
Art, is your hand raised?
Yeah, just a question. Is this something we can approve by email?
I've been instructed to not have action happen through email because of walking quorums. I could ask again on a recommendation from the attorney about that, or what Tracy might say, if it's specifically related to this item. I think there does probably warrant some discussion with some of this stuff. So I'm not sure if it's something that you wouldn't necessarily be able to just look at this report and have it make sense. There's a lot of definitions that go into the compiling of how certain numbers got there.
I understand that, but I guess by the time it goes through SCLS and Tracy and comes back and it comes to a final form, the likelihood that any of us are going to make a change to the report, I think, is vanishingly low. So all we're really doing is putting our stamp of approval on a process that's already taken place behind the scenes. And I certainly don't feel like I have the knowledge that I would point to something and say, no, this can't go through like this because I think it's wrong, or unless there's an arithmetic error. But that's something you can look at and send it out ahead of time. And I guess if we really do formally need to meet, in any case, can you send out the report with some accompanying explanation like a week beforehand, so that we have it, I mean, if it's available, of course, so we can look at it and come to the meeting prepared to say, it looks just fine, and all in favor say aye, and we'll take 5 minutes rather than spending an hour going through something that's, or whatever. Is that a possibility?
Sure. How about if I ask on that and I can get back to you? If we can approve it through email, I'm happy to do that. If you'd like to go through it and discuss it, I'm also happy to do that. But in terms of the capability of approving through email, I feel like I should check on that one.
That's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think too, we've I remember having to do this in the past. It would be a short meeting. It's just this one topic. So it wouldn't be the length of a normal meeting, but I do think there's some value in, it's not that we've ever found like issues with the report, but I've used it as like a learning experience. It's just really great to
Okay,
learn more about what's in the report too.
that's fine.
So I guess I would make a motion that we, defer this from this meeting, not review it this meeting, and that we, review it at another meeting before February 25th. And if that turns out to be email and that's acceptable, then we'll do it that way. But it's basically another meeting one way or another, either virtual like this or via email.
And I think before Art asked his question, I think Rose made a motion. So I think then maybe yours is the second.
And I would second Rose's motion.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we're holding off for a subsequent meeting. Do we want to pick a date right now, Jocelyn? Do you have an idea of when you might have it?
I think the 23rd or 24th would be great. And I am open to any time of day. If we wanted to do an early morning or over the lunch hour. And if we're just looking at the annual report, I can keep it to like 30 minutes, if that would be helpful. So we would just need a quorum on either the 23rd or 24th.
Luckily for me, those dates are pretty wide open. So how do other people feel?
The 23rd in the afternoon, I couldn't do it. The 24th, the afternoon looks okay for me. The morning does not. So I could do morning of the 23rd or the afternoon of the 24th.
I could also send out a doodle poll with options and we could schedule it that way.
That makes sense.
I think that, you know what, that's a wonderful idea.
Yeah, I gotta check work calendars and kids' schedules.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
I promise I can make it short.
All right, so we'll look for that doodle poll, Jocelyn.
All right, I will
From
probably
you by email.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, any other new business? All right, so we will wait to hear from Jocelyn about the date for the approval of the DPI report. Otherwise, our next monthly meeting is March 8th. I'm assuming we're continuing in the virtual format, Jocelyn?
I think the meeting room will be ready for the board's purposes by then. If you wanted to meet in person, the mask mandate did get extended. This last time through March 1st, I think. So again, this is the board's decision. I'm happy to make whatever happen possible. I don't know about the dual live streaming yet. That's also a thing that we really need to practice. When you do the live streaming like that, there's actually really like 3 meetings happening at the same time. So,
I'd recommend that we continue to meet via Zoom for a little longer. I know the rest of the city is still keeping everybody at arm's length for everybody's safety. And we're trying to follow Dane County Madison Health requirements, which, like you said, may expire on March 1st, or it may be extended yet again. So until things are a little bit more sure, I would recommend that we continue Zoom meetings.
I would agree.
Yeah, me too.
All right. So we will do through at least March virtually, and then we can revisit again.
Yep.
And Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Bye.
All right, thanks for a lovely meeting, everyone.
Thank you, Mary Beth.
Have a great
Thank
evening.
you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye.